Syrian government troops and their allies closed in on the last rebel territory in eastern Aleppo. Civilians trapped there sent goodbye messages, bidding farewell to the outside world, saying they faced a choice between being killed in relentless bombing or being arrested and thrown into government jails. Well, just back from Syria is the French doctor Raphael Pitti, who works with the NGO, the Union of Medical Care and Relief Organisations, helping medical teams on the ground and providing them with emergency medical training. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Pitti, for coming in to talk to us. Obviously, the humanitarian situation in Syria is abysmal. Can you tell us what you and your teams have heard, what you're seeing in Aleppo, what you're hearing from people you've worked with on the ground?
We've been working in Syria with the UOSSM for the past 5 years. It's an NGO that trains doctors so they're prepared to treat war wounds. There's a network of more than 7,500 people, and they give us a continuous supply of information about the situation. And the situation in Aleppo is deteriorating in an appalling way. It's the biggest catastrophe since the last war, and there are crimes being perpetrated, in particular by the Syrian army. We know, for example, that people had taken refuge at the al-Hayat hospital and they were pursued by government soldiers and massacred there. Medical personnel were among them. Some just about managed to escape, others were massacred on the spot, including some of them with knives. The bombings have resulted in houses being blown apart, with families inside who couldn't get out. There have also been reports of rapes, but we can't confirm that. The situation is really catastrophic, and the people in these neighborhoods are afraid to go out. They're scared of going to the regime because they know that the government discriminates. There's a filter where the young men are separated from the old. The young men are forced to become soldiers. The older ones are taken to the Air Force Intelligence Center, where they're interrogated to find out if they're activists or not. The doctors are also very afraid. There's still a dozen of them in Aleppo. Since the very start, they've been considered activists themselves because they cared for those who were wounded, whether they were fighters or not. I spoke with one of the surgeons who told me that he had destroyed all of the medical photos and all of the records he had, and he'd also burned all of his books because he's afraid of being treated like an activist. They know about the contents of the 50,000 photos that were taken during Operation Caesar that showed prisons and tortures. They're afraid of being treated in the same way.
You have been working inside Syria yourself. You've got several clinics there. You've been setting up hospitals. How difficult is it for you to do this medical work inside Syria, given that doctors have become a target in this war?
It's a terrible situation that has never existed elsewhere. In any case, it's a crime against humanity and a war crime to destroy hospitals, to target and kill doctors. And these crimes go unpunished. Our colleagues are very courageous, and they're working in a worsening and increasingly important situation because they're lacking in medicine, medical equipment, and surgical tools. It's always been very difficult to get them supplies within Syria, and so most of the doctors after 3 or 4 years just finally gave up because the danger was too persistent. It's always there. In recent months, especially in hospitals, medical students have been replacing the specialists. There are people working as nurses who aren't nurses, midwives who aren't midwives. And all of this while the terrible situation is ongoing. There's a constant risk of being bombed.
What does the international community need to do, in your opinion, to help this situation at this desperate stage?
I feel personally revolted by the fact that the international community has done nothing over the past 5 years. Constantly, crimes against humanity and war crimes are being denounced by the UN, but there's never been any action. All the resolutions presented to the UN, even the humanitarian ones, have been blocked by Russia. So I've realized that the destruction of Aleppo also means the destruction of humanitarian law and the UN itself at the same time. It's proved to be ineffective.
I'm afraid there's much more we could talk about, but we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time and your expertise, Dr. Raphael Pitti there.